Hello, everyone. This is Toni Weel with Sara and our guest, Thad Cheatham. Cheatham? No, Cheatham. And we're doing this podcast for me from not so sunny Florida, but warm. My little weather report. We don't need a heating on anymore, which is good. Get, I like the seasons. But at some point, it's like I live in Florida. I want to be able to sit outside and enjoy, the butterflies and the bees and everything. Anyway, we decided to do a follow-up of last week's, the emotional aspects of detoxing, and we asked people, like, send us your questions. And either in the chat here or in email, we got a few in email which were not really that much related to the emotional aspects of detox, but in a way they are. Because if you have trouble socializing because you feel that you are on a very limited diet for your health, then there is definitely an emotional aspect that can actually hinder your healing. So I think all questions are good. So whoever is listening, if you have a question, please do share it with us. I think that you had a few, and we might as well dive into the questions. And now that you're supposed to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah, wherever you want to start, Tony. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, go with a question that you had.
Okay. All right. The only question that I had that was in line with the topic, but of course we decided that we would answer. Before I knew that we would answer other questions, I told some other people we were kind of just looking for questions along the topic, and they accidentally deleted their other question they had, and I was gonna save those questions and answer them today, but anyways, besides the point, I imagine we'll find things to talk about. Let's see. The question I have today, I will guess I won't mention her name just because I don't know if she, I mean, even though it was a question that was posted publicly, I still would just focus on the question instead of the individual asking. And she says, addressing extra hungry during PMS, during detox, during winter. So I guess she's saying, how do you address being extra hungry during a female cycle during the winter time? And I'll go ahead and talk about it first, and then I'll pass it over to the ladies to finish it up because they can relate more than, of course, I can. I guess what I would have to say about that is that it's just going to be some natural fluctuations that you're going to have with your hormonal cycle, going through even just normal month to month cycles, but even more as we're detoxing because the adrenals and the endocrine system, regulate so much of our hormonal fluctuations, of the body. And that's only natural that that's going to change some, during detox. And then, of course, definitely during the different seasons of the year, especially during the winter time, because the winter time is cold weather and cold weather is alkaline to the body. And so anytime you're in cold weather, that's going to bring up physical toxicity and trash that the body is trying to eliminate, but also old stagnant emotions and feelings and traumas, because those are acidic to the body, just like toxins that we are exposed to. And so that's why it's definitely normal to feel extra hungry. Why would she say extra hungry? Well, okay, let's talk about that for a second. Is she could be saying that because the candida and the bacteria are used to her eating larger amounts and she's not eating as much during detox. But it also could be that when you start to change up your microbiome from what it was before, it takes them a little while to adjust as well. And that's why you can still have some cravings and some extra hungriness, to other heavier, foods that leave behind more residues, in the body. And so that's a process as we go through the different stages of detox and the different, time periods that it takes sometimes to get to the different levels where you don't feel as hungry as you did in the first, few stages or even first few weeks, depending on how long you're going with your detox. But also the extra hungry thing, it could also be an emotional thing again, because sometimes, and I can speak that for myself, so much of my life is that, I have always used food a lot of times to suppress my emotions, and just feel more sedated, feel more, that full feeling that you don't feel as empty and I guess as vulnerable with your emotions that come, deep within. And so that could be an extra reason why sometimes we're used to at different times, wanting more food than normal, So I guess that's the easiest way that I would explain it. And then not to, have too long a winded replies, I would like to turn it over to you guys now and let y'all address it, Yeah.
Well, I have been for quite a few years past menopause, and I don't remember if I had more cravings or greater appetite and more hunger during my periods way back. But then again, I wasn't detoxing then. But some thought just came up, and I think this is important. What you can do is start a few days before your expected cycle to go on all fruit. At least 5 days before, go on all fruit and see how that works out for you. Because I found that when you detoxing, we talk about detoxing, but is everyone doing the detox the way that Dr. Morse has been teaching? And oftentimes that's not quite the case. Because people think that they can still add all kinds of fats, the coconut, the avocado is a big one, and nuts, and it's not a part of detoxing. So I think you will get through a much easier cycle if you start your fruit, your detox. Yeah, I don't like the word detox. It's your health times, healing times, a few days before and during. And if you want to add, a little fat afterwards, but see how it goes. Write things down. Write down how you feel, and what is it exactly that you are craving. I think that is important too, because I can tell you if I eat one cooked meal and I have a leftover that I plan to use the next day or put in a freezer and use it whenever, when that stuff is still out there and I had my meal and I'm actually satisfied to full and it is an hour later, I want that leftover. When I eat fruit, I never eat until I'm full. I eat until I'm satisfied and I'm not hungry at all. Usually it takes me 3 days before the hunger goes away. And I found a few weeks ago it took 5 days, and but then I'm good. That's why I'm saying try that. Try that 3 to 5 days before you cycle and see how it goes.
hmm I mean, I'm still young enough where I'm still in my cycles, and I plan on keeping them for a very long time. That's actually one of my goals, is to see how long I can actually keep it for. And I can even remember back when, and it still happens to this day too, where about 2 weeks before my cycle, I get like very ravenously hungry. And before I even started my journey this way, my cycles were pretty hard, where they were pretty painful. And I read somewhere when I was first coming into being like vegan, which I don't call myself vegan anymore, but when I was starting to do vegan, I read about cutting the fat out, like what Toni was saying. And so I did cut the fat out about a week before, and that really did change my cycles to where they were not so hard anymore on my body. So I went on doing that. But the other way that I found that it can help to fix that is I mean, I believe it comes from some kind of like hormone imbalance during that time, or your hormones are changing during that time. I'm not a doctor, so I can only speak from, my own experience. But adding lots more water and a lot more fruit during that time to help with the hydration and to help with the balancing of everything that is changing within your body has always really helped me as well too. And a lot of the times hunger can be from dehydration, and any kind of cooked foods or anything will make you more dehydrated. So amp up your water a lot, especially the week before your cycle, and stick to your fruits, fruit juices. But eating your fruits is also very important too. I know we talk a lot about juicing, but getting that fiber and actually doing the chewing and the eating of the fruits is what is very beneficial to us.
Well, I hope that answered her question. She may let you know that because it wasn't your group.
Well, I read the first part of it, but I wanted to read the second part of it. It wasn't so much a question, it was a realization that she had. And so I just wanted to share it with all the listeners, and then we can move on to the next question. Is she said, uh, not sure if the question qualifies for the talk or even if it's hormonal or emotional, but it's definitely an extra layer for women to deal with during detox that is real. I found during my detox so far, I realized I am continuously undoing conditioning and habitual habit. It's amazing, especially that I recognize what it is as I go through it. The journey is amazing. Thank you in advance. I look forward to listening in. We'll see what she
Mhm.
did there is that she had that self-realization from the experience that she was going through, and sometimes that's why we really need to just get in there and just start experiment with things and just learn to listen to what your body's communicating with you from the whole experience, the way you feel, the way you notice some changes, just from different experiments. Because when you have those aha moments, where you have that deep understanding of what you're experiencing, then that's how you're learning. That's how you're growing as an individual, and that's to the core of why we came here on this planet to experience life. So I think that's important that she had that experience. So that's just what I wanted to add.
Beautiful.
Yeah, now why don't you, Toni, go for one of the ones you have if you want to?
I got a few, and there is one that comes up a lot, and we see when like you said, you've seen so many health questionnaires. There is always one that pops pops out for me, is like feeling irritable during a detox. And is that normal that you feel extra irritable?
Yeah, you want me to answer it
Yeah,
first and then
go
y'all go
ahead.
ahead? Okay. Yes, most certainly. And I think the reason why that is, in my personal opinion, is because it's kind of like the young child within is saying, this isn't my comfort zone. I'm having to step outside of my comfort zone. This is not fair. I don't want to have to do this, like the little kid's pitching a fit, and it's saying, this is no fair. I want to keep eating my cake, but I know I don't need to. And I feel like deep down inside, that's kind of what we're going through. We're going through that growing moment, that growing period that in order to get to the other side, we have to work through those feelings and work through those emotions, and we have to be stronger than those emotions and feelings in that moment, that are testing us really, and that's kind of the way I feel about it. But also it's because you're stirring up all these different stored toxins and emotional energies and things that the body has tried to store in places where it won't hurt, your organs and your more vital areas. And so it's kind of like the body is feeling that irritation because everything's being stirred up and moved around. So there's many different levels and different layers of what's going on and the reason why we feel different sensations in the body. But sometimes I feel like when people have irritation, that's just one of the first responses that the body has, And sometimes it's a response to feeling confused. We don't really know why we're experiencing and feeling what we're feeling. And that sometimes happens because we don't have enough experience, doing these things that are out of the ordinary, because these are not things that we were taught since we were young. A lot of us, we wait to do these experiences, after we've gotten into our, 20s or 30s or 40s, or sometimes, even midlife, and so think about it. Our bodies and all of the layers of who we are and all of the layers of the different bodies we have, according to what Dr. Morse teaches, they're all saying, hey, what's going on? I kind of compare it to like riding a bicycle. Think about what our bodies are thinking about it, much less what our spirit is thinking about the experience of going from always walking to first learning how to ride a bicycle, and so we have to work through that process until finally the body says, as well as, our spirit says, oh, I know what this is. I've done this before. This isn't going to be as hard as it was the first time, because I know what to expect, and I know what to feel, and I know, and every experience is going to be a little bit different, but at the same time, you already can go into it kind of feeling like, what, the majority of what to experience and to expect, So I think it's quite an interesting topic, an interesting subject to talk about, because it can be interpreted many different ways, but that's my interpretation, and I'll let you guys share yourselves.
Now, it is known that you can, when you have a thyroid issue, that you can be easily irritable.
That's right.
And now, when we are on a detox, would you say that activates the thyroid more then?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that because, we are, the more we consume sometimes, the more thermogenesis is created. It's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of like, the more things that we eat, sometimes the more fuel it gives the body. Now, that's not always the most optimal fuel, but it's fuel in a way that the body's trying to process it to see if it can make fuel from it. It's kind of hard to explain. It's because some of it is also stimulating, because of the stimulants that we consume. And so to a small degree, those stimulants are going to stimulate the thermogenesis, or the metabolism of the body as well. That's why if you look at a lot of your metabolism increasers that even we sell at our health food store, it's the, like the cacao and maybe green coffee bean, that which is better than regular roasted coffee bean, but it's still a stimulant, and that's why, we have to try our best to avoid all stimulants when we're trying to help the nervous system to recover, because the nervous system it gets burned out over the years of us consuming so many stimulants. And that's a hard one for a lot of people, because when you take away the stimulants, they will have a crash with their nervous system, their adrenals function, as well as their metabolism. And then, yes, you're right, Tony, about how the thyroid has such an effect with that, because also, why does the thyroid? Is because when you have proper calcium utilization, that has a lot to do with the reason why a person experiences depression or sadness or emotional, irregularities, because of their thyroid not functioning correctly, as well as their endocrine system. And so it makes them go through different emotional, feelings, and irritability can definitely be one of those. So yeah, it's amazing how it all plays together and how they're all weave together like that, Yeah.
You would like to add anything, Sarah?
No, I agree with what you both said too, and the fact that when you are, well, actually, I do want to input something. It's something you said a few episodes back, Dad, was that just don't forget that when you are on a more carnal diet, it will suppress all those feelings. And kind of going with what you were just saying is that when you do switch over to a more alkaline diet with your fruits and stuff, that's going to allow those feelings to kind of resurface and get jumbled around in your body, and it's just a way for them to come out, and unfortunately it is just the process that you need to go through to get them out.
Yeah, that's so true. And one last thing I'll add that I'm springboarding off of what you just said is that I guess my experience has taught me something that is probably one of the most challenging things to have to face and to have to get used to doing. But I've really come to the understanding that, a lot of times the only way we can work really well and work efficiently through these emotional challenges is to just find some way to not run away from it, not push it away, not try to stop thinking about it, not try to suppress it, not try to do something to cover it up, but to embrace it, to say, okay, I need to sit down and just work through this. I need to sit down and just relax my mind, relax my body, whether it's meditation, deep breathing, something to, instead of pushing it away and running away again, is just sit with it and just allow yourself to process it and allow yourself to just work through it, because there's so many times if you can do that, it will keep you from cheating. It will keep you from breaking your fast. It will keep you from, avoiding the situation that's coming up to help you to work through it, to address it, because again, as they say, if you can't feel it, you can't heal it. And a lot of times people don't want to feel those emotions again from their past because it was too hard the first time. And so they've told themselves, they've promised themselves since that first happened that they weren't going to feel that again. They didn't want to feel that again because it was too hard, but they don't realize that the more they keep avoiding that, it's avoiding part of the human experience and a part of the process of letting go of those old traumas from the past, and so that's a big one for me and for so many people out there in the world is we have to try to be brave and be courageous and be so self-loving that we're allowing ourselves to just process and work through everything that comes up, no matter how challenging and hard it is, And that's kind of what I keep reminding myself, and that I don't have to always run to the heavier foods. I don't always have to make some cooked foods. I can sit in those feelings and be okay with it. Yeah, that's what I was
And
just going to add.
yeah, and that's what yoga teaches us. That's why they
Yeah,
put
that's
us
right.
in those positions. They are very uncomfortable positions for most people, especially in the beginning. But they're teaching you how to sit in an uncomfortable position and still find your center and still be able to breathe and still be okay and just work through that.
That's right.
Okay, I have another question, and that is, how do people deal with the social aspect of detoxing or a fruitarian lifestyle in general? Social isolation? We are a group of friends and try to meet once a month. We meet for dinner in a restaurant. In case I join, there's no option to eat without having a cheat meal. How do people deal with that? I'm tempted to join and say it's okay to cheat once a month.
I mean, I don't know if you want me to go first because
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a very social life, and we're always out doing stuff, and I still will go to restaurants, and I use it as a way to show people how you can eat other alternative things. Does that always mean that I did hear the part where they said they're in detox, but also the fruitarian lifestyle. Sometimes that's where you order a salad and you say like no oil, no this, no that, and everything. And yeah, it always perks everybody's ears up, and everybody's like, what are you going to eat? Or what are you going to do? And like, I'm fine. And then it's just a way of you being an example, because we should lead by example. And so you're showing people that there are other ways to do it. So it's just becoming secure within yourself and know you are going to get questions, but use them as opportunity to explain to people what you're doing. And of course, depending on your crowd, you might want to go really deep within, or, just kind of surface explain, but let them know that you can still have a social life, still be with your friends and your family, and still go through it. Because while you're there and you're setting that example, you're inspiring somebody that you may not even know you're inspiring. It could be somebody at the next table, it could be your waiter or waitress. You have no idea, but definitely don't miss that chance to be that leading example out there in public. Maybe eat before you go, or have something waiting for you in your car when you come out. And then that way, you can get through it. And definitely just bring water with you or order water, and really just fill up on your water too, and that will help.
It's interesting because I was going to say, okay, one cheat meal in a month, if that is what keeps you happy, go for it and enjoy it, but stick with the mucusless foods as much as you can. But I like your comment about being that example that it can be done and that people, may follow your lead. Now he is in Germany, and it's been a long time since I've been there, coming from the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, it was quite normal that you could order a decent salad. Here, it's way more, the restaurants are way more oriented on good salads, and I haven't seen that as much in the Netherlands. I don't know if Ingrid is here, because she could jump in about that. She is
Yeah,
in the
she is here.
Netherlands.
Yeah, she's in
Okay.
the chat.
Okay. Well, she can, and I would say it's pretty much the same in Germany. I do like what you say, being that example. I have taken, a smoothie or even a juice into a restaurant and we're eating with others. And I don't care. I don't care if they think it's weird. If they want to know why, I explain why. I mean, I'm doing it for health, and with this person, it is very important to stay on his diet because he has MS, and he desperately wants to heal, and is very good at sticking to a fruitarian lifestyle, you could say. But yeah, there is something about that, the awkwardness in and socializing, like people wouldn't accept it, or you would be the oddball there, or they would make weird comments. But if they are your friends, they will understand.
Mhm.
And I don't think you will be kicked out of a restaurant if you take your smoothie with you or your own salad. It's we challenge. It's good to challenge restaurants to have better food. That's one thing. I've done that, and I've also done that in grocery stores where I wanted certain items, they didn't have it, but a few weeks later they did. So you can make changes. So
And you can call ahead too. So if you and maybe you start choosing the restaurant that you want to go to or you want to experience, but definitely call ahead. And you can even use the excuse that you have allergies as well too, and that might help people, be more willing to whatever. I
yeah,
don't know the words I'm looking for. Yeah,
to accommodate you,
yeah, more
but
accommodating.
yeah, but then it's still, yeah, then you lie about something, and it's still not like that it would be accepted that you want to have a different
Right. That
lifestyle,
too.
the food that you eat, because not because you cannot eat it, you don't want to eat it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But definitely call ahead to the restaurants and even ask as well too. You can even get like steamed veggies and just say like no butter, no salt, just plain as plain can be. I always use the comment of saying like I'm just boring and plain. That's all I am, and it makes people laugh too. And especially that stick to it because now people are going to be able to see the changes that you're going to make with the MS, and people are going to see a whole new life that you're going to be experiencing soon. So definitely keep on it and don't let anyone deter you from it. I mean, you're on an amazing path and you're going to see great results.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I would add is that's that has been a big part of my journey, living here in the central south of Alabama, and it's been really challenging at times, because the biggest thing for me is that, and of course every situation is a little bit different for every person, and and then for ourselves, you know, a lot of times for me, it depends on what restaurant they're going to. And also even when my family has, get-togethers and meals and stuff, it depends on what they're eating, because certain things I can't tolerate the smells, because it's too strong, especially if it's something that they've most recently cooked and it's still wafting up in the air, and because as they say, if you smell it, you're eating it to a certain degree, so it really depends. Now, if I go with them sometimes to a salad bar, I can handle that, especially a good salad bar. We have one restaurant in our capital city here, Montgomery of Alabama, that is called Jason's Deli, and they actually do serve a really good salad bar with organic greens on it, and it has good options. You just have to bring your own salad dressing, of course, or bring an avocado or something like that if you're eating that. And I've done that several times with my family, and that was one of the most enjoyable and pleasurable things, and that was what my family started doing to make it accommodatable for all of us, and because we all enjoyed salads. That's one thing I've been very blessed with, a family that at least they eat, healthier than the standard, American people, on a lot of their, eating habits. Not trying to judge again, because, we've all been there to some degree. But it also depends on, what you're doing, where you're at in your journey, and just different things that can go on that can make it challenging for people. But yes, I've done that several times. What you guys, and especially Sarah, was talking about with, going to the restaurant and just getting a healthier option, and sometimes even just asking them to bring out some lemons, and I just would squeeze some lemon juice onto my salad, and I would just sometimes just even put a few drops of a hot sauce on there. Now I know, of course, sometimes the hot sauce would have some vinegar in it, or some little small ingredient like that that's not always optional, but in that moment it made the salad really tasty, and it was better than putting all the other salad dressings that they offer, because most of your salad dressings are really sad from a lot of your restaurants, because they either have oil in it or they have dairy products. And so that doesn't leave a lot of salad dressings that, a lot of times we can eat, if we want to keep it real clean and light, but and then I've definitely done what you were saying about getting sometimes just some steamed vegetables, and then sometimes I would, just eat a sweet potato and some steamed vegetables. I just get something simple like that, something that's still clean, even though, starches can, create more cravings and issues in the body too, just because it's a starch. But that's still better than, a salad with oil in it sometimes, if you don't have good options, in that restaurant, but it just really depends. But one thing I wanted to mention before we go on to the next comment though, is sometimes just go to the get together just to enjoy people's company, and just to explain to them that you're there just to enjoy the get together, that you're there to, it's better for you to show up and just to socialize with everyone and to visit with everyone that you hadn't seen in a while, than to just refuse to come at all just because you don't want to be around, what they're eating, and you don't want to make an awkward situation for everyone and yourself. Because, so much of the whole get together, especially family get togethers, it makes people feel awkward. I mean, it makes people feel awkward when you're doing something different than them, or especially if you're trying to eat healthier options when they're not eating healthy options. It makes them feel like you're trying to say what you're doing is better than them. And sometimes people's egos get a little bit, irritated or a little bit bruised, and it makes people kind of be defensive, where they want to, have a discussion about it or talk about it, or, try to insinuate, little innuendos to you about different options and things that you're doing that they don't agree with, and they think different. And then you always hear people will bring up sometimes, oh, well, I thought all that sugar's not good for you, or I thought that, all those carbs are not good for you. You hear so many things from so many different people. And then yes, it is very important to, to be humble and to just, explain to people your point of view, and just explain to people that this is just your own personal journey that you're going through. Just experiment with different things and to see how you feel, because there was actually been times when, I'll never forget one time I went, this is a funny story for all the listeners and everyone, is I went to a Thanksgiving one time with my girlfriend at the time that I had, her family, and I actually went to the Thanksgiving because I didn't want to just not show up, but I was still doing a water fast. And I went to the Thanksgiving with them. Now of course I waited until, I mean, they weren't eating anything that was real, strong smelling, so I could just sit there and just conversate with them. Now, if it had been something real strong smelling, I wouldn't have been able to tolerate it, just because I've always been really sensitive to smells. That's been a big thing my whole journey. That's why I can't tolerate colognes, perfumes, can't tolerate detergents, and just all kind of different chemical smells, especially. But my point is that I sat there and they were cool about it. They even made a joke with me about it. They brought me a bowl of ice cubes, and they said, "Well, I guess if you can't eat anything with us, then you can have some ice cubes." And I just laughed with them about it and everything. And so sometimes the best thing to do is just show people that you care enough to come and that you care enough to be there. Because a lot of times that's all people really want, is they just want you to be a part of the get together. But it is so hard for so many people, including so many different groups of ethnicities or cultures. Because I hear it all the time. It's like I'll talk to Italians sometimes, and they're like, that is so hard because traditional family get-togethers is a very cultural part of our group of people, and we have the big get-togethers with all the pasta and the heavier foods, and all the olive oil and all those foods that are so traditional. And when you start messing with tradition and traditional habits, that starts to tie in with your emotional feelings that are connected to the family's energetics. You have a collective family energetics that have passed down throughout your genetics of that family. So you have this energetic feeling that you feel when you're all together and when you do things, and then that kind of stimulates and affects everyone's collective energy within that family. And then we have a world's collective energy too, because we're all connected through the same creation, through the same God's creation, through the same biology, through the same everything. So we sometimes don't think about those energetic connections that we have to our family lineage, as well as to the world's lineage and to the human race lineage, and all of that. And so that's another thing that brings a whole different layer of complexity to the subject that we're talking about. So, and then I hear it all the time when people from Mexico with us with corn and rice, and same thing with the Orientals or Chinese people or Asians with rice, and just different foods that are so traditional. It's hard to get people to not want to eat those foods. The English really love their breads and their potatoes, and all those things. So that's another thing that makes it hard for people with their families, is because of tradition. So you just have to be really kind of transparent, very respectable, very kind. Don't try to act like, what you're doing is better than everyone else, even though in the back of your mind, the options that you're doing are healthier than some options that maybe some of your family members are doing. But don't start to explain to them why drinking alcohol is bad while they're drinking alcohol. That's not a good thing to do, because then they'll start to be really defensive, and so you have to just kind of, but if they ask you about it, you can say, well, I'll be happy to tell you the information I have, but I would rather tell you in private because, I don't want to offend anyone. I have some knowledge I could give you that's alternative to what you may have heard before about things, because even when people are drinking wine, I'll have someone, they'll say, well, I heard one glass of wine is not that bad for you because that's what I was always told. And I'm like, well, the newest research shows that any kind of alcohol, period, is not healthy for the body, and that's the newest information that's out there. But see, again, you don't want to really do that with someone if they're really still connected strongly to those emotions, to that substance, because they're just going to be defensive with you. And you don't want to argue with people. You want to let people, do their own thing on their own journey. You're just here to kind of help give them information that can help them in some way. And if they're not ready to receive that information, then, don't, because that's happened so many times to me in social situations where it would start to get into that gray area. And I was like, well, wait a sec, I don't want to have this, this heavy discussion around all of us here with our family, or even with family that's not our immediate family, but family we haven't seen but only a couple of times a year, or haven't seen in several years. So you have several different situations like that you can get into, but it takes experience. It takes going through those experiences. Sometimes it takes, going through those experiences with your friends and maybe their families that you're visiting. You just have to really be cautious of the way you communicate with people, the things you say, the things, you do, because that even your actions, you may not even be saying anything at all, but your actions are triggering somebody because they're over there judging you because you're doing something in front of everyone else that they don't think they agree with, and it's really challenging. It can be on many different levels, because even when I was doing the water fasting, none of them agreed. My girlfriend's family, none of them agreed with what I was doing, because I was really skinny. I'd lost a lot of weight, because when you're water fasting like that, especially doing it for a couple weeks, you get really, depleted. And normally I wouldn't do it during the holiday season, but that was like the second time that I'd really gotten into it. And I just, I didn't want to stop at that moment, so see, all of these things are learning experiences. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add. I don't want to keep going. I think people get the gist of what I'm trying to explain, so, but it is a very heavy and interesting topic, and a good question to ask, because that is a big one, especially going out into the world and going out around, people that are not, our immediate families. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something came up that I wanted to say, and now I'm drawing a blank. Oh yeah, it is. You mentioned that already about judging, and there is a fear, I think, with most of us to be judged for what we're doing, and everybody tells you how crazy it is, and you start to feel uncomfortable, and so you want to fit in as much as you can. And unless you are with really, really close friends who absolutely understand what you're going through. So there is that aspect too, and the fitting in, I do understand. I remember my much younger years, I was going out with friends, and everybody was, drinking wine or beer or something, and I was always drinking water or apple juice. And I was told so many times, because I wasn't drinking alcohol, you're no fun. And I was like, I just shrugged, and I was like, okay, then I'm no fun.
That's right. I have been told by my sister and my family, like my sister said it best. She said, "Thad, I have a stressful job working as a school teacher around all these kids that can sometimes be irritating, and I have a principal that is, she's not the nicest person. And so if I can't come home at the nighttime and drink me a little bit of wine and have me some cheese, then I guess I just don't want to be healthy, and or that kind of healthy, and I was like, well, see, that's a very good point you made, is that we all have to choose, how we want to live, but we have to always remember, the cause and effect. If you don't want to have, because I tried to explain to my sister one time, I said, if you don't want to have all that mucus and that bronchitis in the wintertime, because you always catch colds, and I'm saying catch in parentheses, that's what most people think, because she's around all those school children and all that. Now, of course, our environment can affect us from the different bacterias that we pick up. But if your terrain is clean of your body, then a lot of times those bacterias aren't going to affect you. So you wouldn't catch a cold. You would already, your body would be immune strong enough. Plus, it would be clean enough to not have that detox reaction. Because remember, that's all a cold is just detox in the first place. But my point is that that wasn't something she was willing to accept. She was willing to suffer and go through those colds she gets every winter time because she's not willing to give up some of the foods that's creating that reaction in her body. So see, you have to choose what you do because everything has a cause and everything has an effect, you know. So we just have to remember that because so much of society has still been brainwashed into thinking that, oh, your diseases and your illnesses and your colds just flying from Moose Jaw, Alaska, like Dr. Morse would say sometimes, you know. And it's so sad to think that we're taking away our responsibility of every action creates an outcome. And that's sad when people don't take responsibility for their actions. And that I've heard people say that 90% of the things that happen to us are our own cause, you know, our own effects. I mean, our own creation, you know, what we created ourselves. And a lot of people don't want to hear that because, you know, that means that they're responsible and they don't want to be responsible because they can't take responsibility again. Because, you know, there's groups of people in the world that can't take responsibility for their actions because it creates too much shame, you know, and so those are the people that are always going to put it off on something else, you know. So that's another part of the element of our human experiences, working around others and working through our own, you know, feelings that bring up those emotions, you know. But yeah, but keep going. This is it turned into a good conversation.
Well, there's another question actually that was, do other people experience an almost paralyzing feeling of weakness sometimes during a detox? Or can it be due to the weakness generally from multiple sclerosis? Some days I feel so weak I can't even hold my cell phone to talk on.
Yeah, that's a huge one because, you know, multiple sclerosis, that's tied very strongly in with your nervous system, you know, and your muscular system and everything, you know. And so, you know, that's why she's feeling that because those strong symptoms are coming to the surface. But they're coming to the surface so that she can work through that weakness that she has, you know, because as Dr. Morse and also Dr. Jensen talked about it, is that when something is chronic, it's below the surface in the body. Okay, well, you have to bring it back to the stage of acute to have the healing happen. Okay, what happens when you bring something out of chronicness to acute? You have all the sensations come back that people are running away from. You have the pain, the inflammation, the sensitivity, the irritability, all of those things come back because you don't feel a lot of those symptoms the more chronic it goes. And especially you don't feel those symptoms when they get into the degenerative stage. And that's also what confuses people because they think when those symptoms go away, that means they're getting better because they're not feeling those symptoms when they don't realize that's not actually better. That means it's gotten worse, you know, because your body's not able to give you those alerts that something bad is going on, you know, and that's the only reason why we're feeling those feelings in the first stage of acuteness in the first place is it's kind of like the body's, you know, alert system, you know, like the light on the dashboard of your car saying, hey, you need to address this before it gets chronic, before it gets worse. You know, and that's what makes it challenging for a lot of people because there's a lot of people that have such good and strong genetics that when you look at their eyes, most of their symptoms are just in the acute stage already, you know, and so that's why they're having so much symptoms of weakness is because their body's still in those beginning stages, which is good, but for their point of view, they think that, you know, they must have poor health and they're bad because they have so many symptoms, you know, but it's just because of the confusion of not understanding that really when you have more symptoms you have, that's still a good sign that your body's in that active stage. And the less symptoms you have when you know you have some chronic health problems or challenges, then that's not so good. You know, so but see again, that's information that if people don't know the difference, they don't understand. You know, so see that's what
Mhm.
happens because that's what I experience when I start to detox. My smell goes insane. My hearing goes insane. My vision improves drastically. Well, those are things that are improving, but also those are symptoms of weakness that are coming more to the surface. It's like I have to look at, why do I have hyper senses? What has made those senses so, reason for them being so hyper, and it all ties in with my adrenals and different parts of my body, and so that's what I mean by, you can look at a lot of these things that you have going on, and they might at first, and that's why Dr. Morse has even talked about this, is that a lot of our symptoms of weakness can get more stronger before they start to get better. And that's because the body is coming more online. It's trying to work through that symptom of weakness. So you might have more pain, you might have more irritation, your tumor might grow just a little bit, before it starts to stall out and then eventually start to go away. And that's just the body becoming more active. And that's your metabolism again increasing. Because when your metabolism is weak, your body's ability to detox and to function properly is weak. So when you start to increase your body's ability to detox, you're increasing your metabolism. So everything's going to start to come more online that before was in a weakened state. So that's my easiest way to explain it, but I'll let you guys,
Well,
share your part.
I was going to ask, can you please repeat that part again? Because I found that's very important. And I do remember hearing Dr. Morse talk about that, when you have to bring it back up so that way your body can you can start the healing process again. What was that part you said, that it's when it's chronic, it has to come back up to acute to be able to start healing?
Acute. Yeah, remember Dr. Morse and Dr. Jensen both taught there's 4 levels of symptomology, or 4 4 levels of symptomology in the body. It starts off with acute, then it goes subacute, then it goes chronic, and then it goes degenerative. And Dr. Jensen even had a great chart that he showed in his Iridology Volume 2 book. Sorry about that. Let me mute that, and I'll call him back later. Is that he explained, and that's what I've talked about before. I talked about it during our Iridology presentation we had, a couple months ago with Toni.
Mm-hmm.
Is we were talking about how that chart explains how you go from the acute to the degenerative, and how he was saying that in the acute stages, you feel the most sensitivity, you feel the most inflammation, the most pain, the most swelling, the most edema, all of those symptoms. Those are the symptoms of activity in the body. Those are the symptoms of the highest sensitivity in the body. And the nervous system is alerting the body. And then he said, as it degrades, it goes deeper into the body. And the deeper it goes into the body starts to become weaker and less responsive to those issues. And so that's the easiest way to explain it in the most, standard way that most people can understand. But it's hard for people to understand it because it's kind of backwards from what, standard, American medical teaches you, because they teach you that, you automatically only have a chronic problem and that needs to be addressed. They never explain to you that there's, 4 stages, and that the 4th stage, people really don't even know they have the 4th stage, because you lose all sensitivity. You lose all, it's kind of like your body's finally gotten to the point where it says, well, I can't do anything else to tell you that I have a problem. So I'm at these last stages where, you might, and that's what I find very fascinating, is that you might feel some chronic and some subacute pain and inflammation around the areas of degeneration, but in the area of degeneration, you've lost sensitivity there. And then especially in your intestines, because your intestines, you don't have any nerve endings, so you don't feel necessarily pain in the intestines themselves. You feel pain outside of it that's radiating from the intestines, because it's that inflammation, that acidosis, that accumulation of waste is radiating out to the surrounding tissues where you do have nerve endings. But, I find that very interesting, because if you look at and you talk to anyone that has had a colostomy bag, and they don't feel that area where their intestines are sometimes poking out of the colostomy bag, because you don't have nerve endings there. And I find that interesting, but it also shows that sometimes we have to be aware that you can still have things that are going on that's very, dire and very chronic, or very, very serious, and you not even feel any symptoms from it, and that's why they call those more, silent killers, or serious, very serious conditions. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I hope
Yeah, I
that
remember
answered your
yeah, I
question.
remember you explaining that, and I know I've heard Dr. Morse talk about it too, but I just thought that was so important that needed to be repeated.
Oh,
So
very
thank
much
you.
so. Very much
Thank
so,
you.
because I think it's very important for people to understand that, and it's very interesting concept to talk about. But yeah, we can keep going, Tony, if we have some more questions.
Well, I wanted to add something to what we were just talking
Okay,
about.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can,
go
I
ahead.
can, I can see that, and I think that happened to a lot of people, is that, for instance, you go from a wheelchair, you are detoxing, or on your healing journey, and you go from a wheelchair to walking with a cane, and you can do more things, and then all of a sudden you're back to bedridden. Well, you haven't changed anything in your diet, and sometimes that is where people give up. And that is so important that people can understand what exactly is doing that to them. So yeah, I think you just explained it.
Yeah, yeah. And while we're talking about pain, one more question that I did have that was in the same uh area of talking about pain. It's not as much I guess emotional pain. She didn't really specify. It was the question we had from a lady that I've talked to that's in our community before too. Her name's Tracy, and I know she don't mind me mentioning her name because I just wanted her to hear it when we answered her question on the if she watches the replay. She asked in the fans group, Tony. She said, "Can you cover navigating the detox when you are in excruciating pain?" Or she says excruciating chronic pain. And yes, that is something that can be really hard for people, because when you're in such chronic levels of pain, and my heart goes out so much to these people that have to do that. They have to be forced to detox when they're in excruciating pain because they know that that's really the only thing that's going to help them because they've had all this other things they've had to go through with the medical and all this different stuff that they've had to do to try to help their pain medical wise, and it's not really helped, so they're left with having to go from our approach, but they know it's going to be a process that's going to take some time, and so and we really can't use all the normal things that take away pain because that's only going to delay the body from being able to detox, like the pain medicines and all that stuff. So you just kind of have to really find natural things that can help reduce pain, and you have to just try to stay emotionally and mentally stable as much as you can. Use the wonderful herbs that help reduce inflammation, and even use essential oils, but use them responsibly and safely. Not so much internally, of course, or not really internally. I'm talking about just use them externally, like peppermint and different ones. But of course, sometimes dilute them down with carrier oils. If you have skin sensitivities and you can't rub them on full strength. And then of course wash your hands afterwards because you don't want to touch your eyes or your privates. That wouldn't feel good. But there's different things that you can do that can help you to try your best to manage the pain while and the inflammation and the swelling and all those things that come along with that while you're trying to detox and go through the process. It can be a very big challenge for a lot of people, but and then also just try to help your mental state going through it. Just breathe into it. Just keep psyching yourself out by just telling yourself, it's not as bad as you're thinking it is, because one thing that I found very fascinating that I wanted to share along this concept of what I just said is that I was listening to a guy or a lady, I can't remember where the information came. And of course that's irrelevant. I remember the core of the message is it said that they took patients that had been severely burned that were in very chronic pain, and they put virtual reality goggles on them, and they seen nothing but a winter wonderland around them, and they started thinking that they were cold, and that started numbing some of that pain from them being burned. And they said that they noticed that most of their patients reported back that that decreased their level of pain. And so it goes to show that a lot of the things we experience in the body are also things that we make more exaggerated or more, more intense by the mind overthinking it. Because so sometimes you can psych yourself out, or you can diminish what you're feeling by the way your brain's thinking about what you're feeling, so, and that goes for even our emotions and our feelings about life, is that so many times we make the feelings more strong and more intense when we feel, or when we think more fear, or we think more anxiety or more stress along that subject, and so it makes us feel those feelings stronger because of what we're thinking, because you have that connection between the mind and the body, and the body and the mind, and it goes back and forth through the nervous system channels, and the energetic flow. And so sometimes the more you bathe yourself in alkaline energies of your thoughts, your emotions, and what you're eating, then that helps to diminish the pain, the inflammation, So that's how I would answer the question, but I'll let you guys answer before we finish up today. Are you still
Sarah,
there?
yeah, I'm still here. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
As for the chronic pain, no, but the inflammation and the fruits will also help with the inflammation. It's unfortunate, just it's something you just part of the detox, and you just pray the other side comes very quickly, like that you make it over that hurdle.
Yeah, my experience with severe pain, and a few weeks ago I was in so much pain. I even asked you that about what I could do, and you suggested the essential oils. I did buy it. I didn't need it because my first solution actually was go on all water. And that is exactly what I did, and it started to clear up after 3-4 days. But that wasn't a chronic pain, that wasn't acute pain. So if you have a chronic pain, then I would definitely like to know what exactly is going on, what is causing that pain, what is your diet, etc., etc. There are always more questions that there are answers right away. And that comes to another question that pops up many times in the groups. Does Candida feed off of fruit? And you could, from Candida, you could make cancer, because doctors actually tell you that. If you have cancer, if you have Candida, no fruit.
Well, I'll answer that for starting off, because have you guys ever experienced in life, and I know you're going to say yes, because every human should say yes, especially if you're, in your midlife and you've had enough experience of being a human. But have you ever noticed how sometimes the answer is not simply just a yes or a no? Sometimes it's a combination of both. Because that's sometimes the way life is that it's not just simply a yes or no, and that's what this subject is that normally, yes, can sugar doesn't, I mean, fruits and fruit sugar doesn't feed candida. But if you have such poor sugar metabolism in the body because you have such chronic adrenal glands, and all of the fruits you're eating are fermenting in your body, then that fermentation will feed candida and bacteria, especially if you have a major overgrowth, because of it being fermented. But if you're not having a bad issue with fermentation, then normally, yes, fruits and vegetables shouldn't feed candida, because candida is a bacteria in our body that we should be very thankful that we have, because a lot of people think, oh, I've got to destroy it all, I need it completely gone. No, you actually have to understand, and this is what Dr. Morse teaches, is that candida is actually our friend. It's trying to help clean up all the waste in the body. But a lot of it, what the candida feeds off of, is fermentation. Fermentation from starches, fermentation from poor digestion, fermentation from poor food combining, fermentation, and also mucus waste, also bacterial waste that you encountered from the environment, also, just different environmental pollutions, of pharmaceutical pollutions, just all different things that the body's exposed to, and then also certain foods we eat, it builds up a layer of pollution. Like if you eat oily foods, like spaghetti, it's going to build up a layer from your throat to your anus because it's coating that GI tract. And when it coats the GI tract with a greasy layer, it builds up a residue that then you have your inorganic minerals that we get from like waters and just different things. They stick to it, and other pollution sticks to it. And then here comes the candida and the bacteria to try to break it down. But then they start pooping their waste, their biofilms, and their pollution from them trying to break down your pollution, or the pollution inside your GI tract. And so you have all that accumulation of all this waste that builds up. And then the more you keep eating that substance, you create another layer on top of another layer on top of another layer. And then so over time, all those layers, they go through those 4 stages of degradation, just like the body does. Because mucus can go from acute to chronic as well, depending on the color. It can go from clear to yellow to green, from green to a mixture of green and yellow, and then it can go more brown, and then it can go from brown to black. And that's the same thing it will do in the intestines and in the GI tract, and eventually it will turn to mucoid plaque. Rubbery, old, dark mucus that's been there for a long time. And so that's what makes the whole subject with our microbiome so interesting, is because we're only supposed to have 20% candida, and the 80% of the bacteria in our body is supposed to be the beneficial bacteria that our bodies need. But because we've become an over-sterilized society for so many centuries now, at least over 150 years, since the late 1800s, definitely the early 1900s when they came out with penicillin and all those things, it's greatly affected the state of our microbiome. And then also in our modern era of using too much hand sanitizer, bleach, Lysol, antibacterial soap, all of those things that greatly affect the balance of the microbiome. And so you end up not having enough of the beneficial bacteria that's supposed to keep that candida and the other types of bacteria in check, as well as the bacteria we collect from the environment. Like all of us that are healthy, we have flesh-eating bacteria in our body a lot of times. But because we have strong enough immune systems, that flesh-eating bacteria never gains foothold and never causes any problems. But to those that are immune compromised, because they have such low immunity, not low immune systems, because remember, again, that's just a medical term. We don't have a biological anatomy that's called an immune system. That's according to Dr. Morse and Patty Lager. We have immunity. Immunity is the bacterial level in your body that's strong enough to help you to be immune to these conditions we can pick up from our environments. And that's why we really don't have to worry about the germ if the terrain and the microbiome is clean enough and balanced enough, because it goes back to the terrain, not the germ. So that's how I would answer and explain that subject. Yeah. But of course, I can go way more into detail about that one, because that's another subject that I really love to talk about, is because I've read several books about it, and I love talking about it with people in the health food store, because it's so opposite from what the medical association will teach you.
I would love if we could do a show on that, Tony, with Thad, about the mucoid plaque and the different colors of the mucus and how it does coat everything going all the way down, and combination of when you can't digest your sugars properly, what you were just saying before, and how that relates to diabetes. And then all of those things that go along with diabetes, and like even fatty liver disease and stuff like that too, how that all kind of intertwines with each other, and then how to get your body to start properly digesting your sugars so that your sugars are not fermenting. I
Oh
think that would
yeah.
be a great show to go through.
Well, just right quick, I just wanted to highlight on this right quick, and then and of course, I'm not trying to keep us too long today, is diabetes. A lot of people don't know because they haven't researched into it enough. Diabetes is not, now, of course, no, type 1 diabetes, that's because your pancreas isn't working correctly, because a lot of times people like that have been born that way. I'm talking about type 2 diabetes, which is the majority of what people have. That's all from your diet and your lifestyle. And it's not from too much sugar. That's a fallacy. And not even
Right.
too much refined sugar. It's from what
Mm-hmm.
happens is it's from the society of people. We consume too much fats, especially
Mm-hmm.
oils, and too much animal fats, especially heated animal fats. Okay, well, what
Yep.
does that do? That severely clogs the body, and then the whole body and all of the organs become fatty, because they become saturated with that fat. And even the Medical Association has a term for it. It's called intramyocellular lipids, or fat inside the cell. And I
Marbled
get,
meat.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why you get fatty liver, fatty gallbladder, fatty heart, and his name is a doctor, wonderful doctor, vegan doctor. He's not to the level of Dr. Morse, but he still has a great place in our society to help us
Mm-hmm.
to understand. His name's Dr. Neil Bernard. And
Yes.
he's with the Committee for Responsible Education, something like that. But he
Yep.
says that when you look at the cell, you have the insulin receptor on one side of the cell, and you have the uh the the sugar a receptor, the I can't remember the name of it. It's kind of like the door that allows the sugar to come into the
Mm-hmm.
cell. And he said if you don't have any fat in the way in the cell, it's not too if the cell is not too congested with fat, then the insulin will go over to that doorway and will act like the key to unlock the door to allow the sugar that's flowing through the bloodstream to come into the cells. He said, but if you have too much fat, it's saturated in your body, it blocks the keyhole like gum in a keyhole, and it keeps the insulin from doing its job, and the insulin won't allow the sugar to come into the cell. So what do you do to help diabetes to go to balance out type 2 diabetes? Is you have to stop, number one, eating all that saturated fat, and especially all the animal fats and all the oils. Okay, then you can still eat, some plant-based fats if you want, but I wouldn't do a whole lot because, the more you eat, the more it's harder for the body to clean up all that old fat accumulation, and not only the visible fat that we see on the outside of our body, but inside around our organs and glands too. And then the more you break up all that old deposits and you use different things that are natural, like a natural product that you can get that it's more, I guess it's kind of in the range of a supplement, but it's still something great for people to use temporarily. And I know we don't sometimes, recommend supplements in our community, but it's not like a supplement. It's what it's called is sunflower lecithin.
You, you just cut out, Thad. All we heard was sunflower something.
Okay, now can you
Oh,
hear me now? I don't
yep,
know
there
what
you're back.
happened. I was just talking about sunflower lecithin. Sunflower lecithin. It's kind of, it's a product that it's a fat emulsifier, right? And what that does, it just helps start to break up the fat in the liver and the body, from the accumulation of it. So it's not like a normal supplement that of course we wouldn't, advise, but I'm talking about for somebody that has like cirrhosis or fatty liver that's getting very chronic. They might use that temporarily to help their journey just to go a little easier. And then they can start using the herbs, of course, and the diet and all of those things too. That's one thing
Mm-hmm.
that we have to recommend, especially here in the South with our love of the fried foods and all of those things. So that's one thing we recommend people to use in my parents' health food store. But when people don't have that serious of a condition, of course, I never recommend them to use that. I just tell them just start eating better and just start detoxing, and all that fat accumulation, all that waste will start coming out of the body. But when people are in dire
Mm-hmm.
situations, sometimes you have to make a little exceptions to the protocol, sometimes, for certain people. I even remember Dr. Morse and Marcy talking about that, there's certain situations, like Dr. Morse said that there's certain situations some people may have to use a little bit of vitamin D sometimes, Now that's not always the best option for most people. And of course, I would use the plant-based version of vitamin D if you absolutely had to, which comes from usnea, or an herb, and not the kind that's the normal supplement kind again. But, there's certain exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, for most of us, we're only going to need, even talking about glandulars again, for the most of us, we're only going to need, fruits and herbs, or fruits, vegetables, and herbs, but there is a few people every now and then that need to go outside of that protocol. But that's, again, exceptions to that rule, but yeah,
And
I love talking about all these subjects, because these are some of the big topics in our community, in our world, that people need to be aware of, because there's so much misinformation out there.
absolutely.
It
Yeah,
really
for
is,
sure.
Yeah.
And Dave agrees with me too. He says it sounds like this should be a topic for next week, because I still even have questions about the fruit sugar fermenting within the body and how that all affects as well too. But I don't know if anybody, or if you're available, or if Toni, if we have something else lined up or not, but I would love to hear this in a show to come soon.
We will do that then. I was just asking, what should the title of that show be?
I'm not sure,
I'm not good at naming anything.
Or well, I mean, I don't know.
And if
I'm
Thad
not
is
sure.
even available too, so we'll have to
Yeah,
see.
I would be available next Thursday
That
again,
would be great.
yeah, and I love to talk about these subjects, because it gives people um that food for thought, where they can say, that's something I
Mm-hmm.
need to do more research into. I need to look into that more,
Yes.
and I say, look at several different sources of information, and then always use Dr. Morse's information as the foundation. That's what I like
Yes.
to do. I like to read in different sources and different information, and then say, well, does that go against the teachings of Dr. Morris? Or how does
Mm-hmm.
that work with his information? And that's what we're constantly talking about with people on the Telegram group too. Is that we want, and that's what they've asked me to do, being a moderator there, is they've asked me just to help keep it in with the line of Dr. Morse's teachings, and help people understand these topics in a simplistic way. Don't If they
Yep.
want more detailed information, y'all can talk on a private message, but sometimes we have to keep it real simple, because people can get confused so easily. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
Well,
what Toni does on the Facebook channel too.
Yeah.
You just try
Yeah.
to keep it in line with Dr. Morse. Go
yeah,
ahead, Toni. I'm
absolutely.
sorry.
Yeah. No, I was looking at the clock and I see we're way past the hour. So I would
Yes.
say that we can end the show.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I
And
imagine
we
it
will
will
do
come.
more. We will do more next week. And
I was gonna say,
you guys have to come up with a title for that.
oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
I was gonna say, let's all just think about it and just brainstorm about it, and then we can toss it around with each other, and then we'll come up with a title for it, and so
And an intro. Sounds good.
okay, yeah, sounds great.
So guys, thank you again for being here
Mm-hmm.
and share all your notes. It's been wonderful. I think a lot of people got very good answers, and the best answers actually. And yeah, thanks all for being here. Much love to everyone. Until the next time.
Thank you all.
Yeah, bye
Thank
bye.
you, Thad. Thank you, Toni. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you guys.